this is a wonderful example. A father who was out with his son, who was aged 3, suddenly the child looks at the horse for the first time and says, "Look, Daddy, there's a dog." And the father laughs and says, "No, Tommy, that's a horse." Now, it looks like a very ordinary conversation between a father and a son. But my dear ladies and gentlemen, how quick we are to give answers to the questions posed by the children. How quick. The moment a question is asked, we get into the teacher's mode and start answering the question immediately without any delay. And that is where, my dear ladies and gentlemen, lies the harm. And what is the harm? You might say, I just gave the answer. I just said that no, it's a horse, it's not a dog. Could we have waited for some time? Could we have given some time to the child to observe, to think, to imagine, to infer, to analyze that what is it that this animal looks like? However, we get quickly into our own mindset of answering the questions, because for generations and generations we've been taught, if something is asked of you from a child, the first thing is answer that. Give an answer immediately. And that is where, ladies and gentlemen, I wish for you to think about. I know that some of you might be thinking, I'm an HOD of a department and I am dealing with students who are 14 years old, 15 years old. How come I have to learn what a 3-year-old child is asking the parents? And there, my dear ladies and gentlemen, lies the catch. The catch is, child, irrespective of the age the child is in, 3 years or 13 years, remember, that is still a child. The child has grown up to the height of 6 feet. That's all right. But the child still needs to think. The child still needs to understand. And instead of immediately rushing into the answer, pause and ask more questions to the child to reach a conclusion. So the father thinks, perhaps I could have said, yeah, it has 4 legs like a dog. And what else is like a dog? Or, this is a horse, you have not seen one before. What do you think? How is it different from a dog? What the father had failed to do was to extend the child's power of speculation. Ladies and gentlemen, speculation. How very important for any educationist. That we need to tell our children to think for themselves, to speculate what else could it be, and then reach the answer. Instead of continually practicing, making connections, guessing and inventing. Now, these are the 3 words we need to focus upon. Making connections. As they say, joining 2 and 2 and making it a 4. But what kind of connections am I talking about? The cognitive connections, the affective connections, the psychomotor connections. All these connections, they will help the child to guess and to invent and to learn to be creative in life. So the focus of learning shifts subtly away from a learner to the teacher. And instead of steadily increasing the child's skill in retrieving the information, in connecting the information, in comparing the information, and in transforming the information, the child reacts passively. The child thinks, well, I have to sit in the classroom. I have no choice. And I'm sitting from 8 o'clock in the morning to 2:30. And I just have to listen to what ma'am is saying because that is how I'm going to learn. I neither have to ask a question, nor do I have to think about it because everything is given in the book and everything is given in the teacher's lesson. And I don't have to worry about it. And the child comes to believe in the authority of others rather than the potential of the child's self, of his self. I know how I have to learn this. I know how I have to learn photosynthesis. I know how the solar system goes. The teacher had given me a cue. The teacher had told me something, and I'm going to work on it. And how will I work on it? I will work on it by retrieving information, by connecting the dots. There are so many dots all around us. Something we see here, something we see there, and something we read about. Somebody tells us something, and then we think about something. Finally, one fine day, we say, oh, that's amazing, because I have started understanding how to connect this into a big whole. And once you start understanding the big whole, you realize where you stand. And therefore, if the child does not know the precise answer or does not fully understand an observation, the child can wait for the others to explain. We have a lot of technical aids today for learning. Television, video, computers, calculators, mobiles, what have you. But have you ever realized that all these technical pieces of information, I'm calling them technical pieces of information, can they ever take place of thinking? Would thinking be possible when the mind is set with a certain thing? Some of us are so hooked on to the mobiles, to the messages, to the forwards, one message coming from here and being sent there, coming from there, being sent here, and so on and so forth. What are you doing actually? You are getting into some creative thing which another person has created. Could you have used that time into creating something of your own? Could you have thought that instead of looking at only at what the other people are doing and the other people are saying, can we look inwards, inside us? Do we know that there is a creative person within us and we can learn a lot also from the environment, from a lot of people? So all those people there who are hooked on to the technology, and sadly, today, it's a way of life thanks to the current situation. Technically connected, virtually connected all the time. Is our mind virtually connected to think? Or is our mind so absorbed in what the other people are doing by way of videos, by way of thinking? Where is your thought? Where is your thinking? What did you read and analyze and think? Have you ever heard of a lot of people who read anything and then their mind starts working and they want to reflect, they want to ponder over, they want to connect and associate, and they want to write and they want to think? And that is what, ladies and gentlemen, this technology-driven generation all around us, probably we are the second generation now, having with us in our schools, because we are also technically connected all the time. I really need you to start thinking about it, that don't be overburdened with what the other people are doing. Nothing can replace the mind. It is the mind at the end of the day in the school which is going to make all the difference in your creativity. So for some time, remove these interventions from your life. Give yourself some space and time to think about creating something. As I say, out of sight is out of mind. What does that mean in creative thinking? Thinking something new actually takes a lot of effort. And which is why this famous saying, it is harder to teach an old dog new tricks. We prefer to rely only on automatic processes. They take less thought, less effort. But they have two problems, two major weaknesses. They tend to make thought stimulus bound, which means what we know, we are sure, I know that this is what is good for me, and I will always do it because it is a sure shot way of achieving things. So you're bound and restricted by the stimulus that your mind has created. Second, they tend to make it habit bound. Have you seen that early morning when we wake up, every single step sometimes is perfectly synchronized with the way we are day after day, week after week. How do you wake up? How do you stumble to the washroom? How do you pick up the brush, and how do you brush your teeth? This is a pattern which is deep inside you and which makes you do things. If at all we can break from this kind of monotony in our thinking, probably we will be able to create much more creativity in our lives. And as with children, we tend to respond only to what we see, what we hear, what we feel and sense. So ladies and gentlemen, before the out of sight goes out of mind, I would request all of us to start thinking of what we have within our mind which needs to come to the surface, which needs to come to the conscious mind. And that is why a key aspect of intelligence is that it can control impulsiveness. Sometimes children are not able to control their impulsiveness. They immediately react to a situation. Because, why? Because impulsive behavior looks at the immediate satisfaction of a want, a desire, an impulse. It often fails to think about an alternative solution that may, in the longer run, bring more satisfying results. Would you agree that most of the times we go for a bar of chocolate impulsively? It is lying in the refrigerator, we just open it, and we can't stop ourselves because we like chocolates, or we like anything, a pudding or a dessert, or anything which is a weakness, or a soft drink. Even if we know that it might cause more harm, this 1 minute of impulsiveness will sit on your body for maybe many months. Those of us who are struggling with weight, many of us are, we can't control our impulse, and that is why we continue to fall into despair because we say, after all, this is only one life. Of course, this is only one life. And that is the whole point. This is only one life. So can we have more creative thinking by flexibility of choice? So intelligence lies in the ability to consider and evaluate the courses of action without acting. The crazy is that in choices. You have a choice. I eat that chocolate just now and I satisfy my need, which is so important for me to satisfy. And the second is, if I could stop myself now, probably I will be better off for later. But before this thought comes to your mind, if I could stop just now and maybe it's better for me, before that, the impulsiveness has captured us. And that impulsive nature often causes problems in creativity. So what it lacks in speed, it gains in quality of decision. You might then think that you did not react spontaneously. I wish I had picked up the chocolate and eaten it. But you made a wonderful quality of decision. You were able to break the bond of accustomed perceptions, usual habits, to be able to direct the mind to new ideas and to new possibilities. All children are born with a creative ability, but are they brought up with that kind of creative environment? That is something which is food for thought today for all of us. Psychologists like Carl Rogers said that human beings require two conditions if they have to function very well and very creatively. One, psychological safety, and second, psychological freedom. So look at these two words. Why psychological safety? Why not just safety? Why psychological freedom? Why not freedom only? Something about psychological or psychology? Safety is how we feel we are safe. Not only freedom from war and strife and conflict and aggression. No, it's what we think, that we are safe with the conditions around us. And we are free to operate the way we have to operate in our lives. So no wonder a lot of genius originated in Europe in 16th, 17th, 18th centuries. And why that many number of genius did not originate at that time in the other countries? I'm talking about the modern times. I'm not talking about the ancient times, because for that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm absolutely sure that India was the leader. With an old, stable civilization and a perfectly comfortable environment to create geniuses. You don't have in the world people who have written the amazing knowledge which you find in the Vedas. They don't belong to any other civilization. They belong to us. That's a matter of pride for all of us. That's a matter to think what ancestors we had. Such creative geniuses. And then I come to the 18th century, for example. Let's say Shakespeare, who created amazing dramas, the poets, Wordsworth, the philosophers, Rousseau, the painter, Michelangelo, the scientists, Einstein. Why in Europe? What happened? Was just one continent better than the rest of the continents? What about Asia? What about America? What about the other places in the world? What about the new continent discovered later, Australia? Why? So much of innovation did not happen there at that time because of the same thing, ladies and gentlemen, psychological safety. And a beautiful, comfortable climate. And people did not have to worry about strife at that time. On the other hand, a lot of countries which remain embroiled in wars, they often did not create that kind of creative person, which could have been possible. And Europe fell into wars in 1914 and 1939. Major wars of the world. And you pick up history, study the researchers of that time, and see how less an amount of creativity happened at that time when you are, ladies and gentlemen, running for your life, when you're trying to protect yourselves. What can you create? Can you do scientific experiments? Can you paint at leisure? Can you sit in a beautiful garden like William Wordsworth, look at the daffodils growing everywhere and create daffodils? Or a solitary reaper? A lot of creativity did not happen at that time because of oppressive conditions. But there was a young girl who wrote a wonderful experience of her life. Might have heard about Anne Frank, who wrote about her experiences of being confined and of going through a very, very difficult time during the war. The Diary of Anne Frank. Creativity does emerge from sorrows, from difficulties, but a lot, many more creative things happen when you have psychological safety and psychological freedom. So when the child's sense of psychological safety, we need to understand that what are the processes which are leading up to it. First, accept the child as an individual of unconditional worth and having faith in the child no matter what is the present situation. We often as teachers forget to do that. Avoiding external evaluation and encouraging self-evaluation. Ladies and gentlemen, one thing which is like a disclaimer, I'm not talking about examination and testing and external evaluation. I'm talking about creativity and encouraging of that self-evaluation in a person, in a child. To empathize with the child, trying to see the world from the child's point of view, understanding and accepting him. I remember, again, another example, so many years back, probably 2003. I was heading a DPS. I was the principal for a DPS, and I remember that a Canadian person came who took a lot of workshops for my teachers. And one thing my teachers thanked the Canadian, her name was Ruth, that much I remember. I don't remember her full name. Ruth, I remember. And the teachers for the first time came to know that when on a piece of paper, if a child draws something and you say that, no, excuse me, this is not how you draw the sun. The sun is not like this. The sun is a perfect round, or the sun is yellow, or the sun is bright, sun is orange. She said, if you really want the child to explore his creativity, answer the question the child poses, but give a pause and let the child interpret on his own. That why did the child paint the sun blue or black? What was the reason for that? Rather than correcting the child immediately, that no, this is not like that. Because what the child sees, a child who had gone through a very bad situation at home did not see the brightness of sun. And instead of telling the child, of course, the teachers were never reprimanding the child, but instead of telling the child that the sun is to be painted yellow, the teachers learned to question the child. What does he think? And if we go out, what do you see? When you look at the sky, what color do you find? So on and so forth. That empathy is often missing from our lives.